Jerry, for you, I'd like you to tell everybody, especially this year, this is the 70th anniversary of Batman this year in May. It's also the 20th anniversary of our first Batman film. How was the Joker created? How did you and Bill Finger create the Joker? And what were your feelings? What did you experience watching the '89 movie with Jack Nicholson and watching Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight?
Well, it's extraordinary what's happened over the years, obviously. I guess I created the Joker in 40 or 41. I started when I was 17 on Batman. I was still a student at Columbia and was dividing my time. I wanted to be initially just a writer. And so I found that writing and drawing was a great combination, so I decided on that career. Well, the Joker specifically came about because Batman immediately, in a very short time, took off. And we soon had a demand for more Batman stories, and with elsewhere from the other executives decided to put out a magazine of its own of Batman, which was Batman #1 and quarterly. So suddenly, Bill, who was, I think, arguably the best writer at the time, but he was a very fine craftsman. He wasn't very prolific because he didn't turn out a story unless he was really satisfied. It was well plotted and thought out. It was well researched. He used to have the habit of attaching the research that he did for the story to the script. So if he was doing a story about a ship, for example, or a liner, he had action on the shipboard, he would send the clippings of an actual ship that he was using. And this gave us the sense of the story, and the stories actually were able to work out. It was kind of the precursor on the storyboard for the movies. And so we were suddenly confronted with doing 4 stories for Batman, #1, and then 1 story for Detective Comics, which we're just doing also, and there was one story for World's Finest. So Bill was confronted as the writer with doing almost 6 stories. In the space of the time, he did 1. So this was going to be a problem. So I volunteered to do 1 of the stories, and it was both Bob and Bill eagerly accepted. And I thought, this is great. I was still doing my creative writing classes at Columbia, and I would do the script for Batman, and I'd handed in my creative writing class, so I paid for the story and a credit. Good thinking. So I set out that night, and this is literally how it happened, to do the first story for Batman. I had no idea what I was going to do. But when I got home, my little room in the house, I started to think of what kind of story I wanted to do, and I knew that all the great villains that I had been studying in class in literature had a great protagonist. Now, there was a dichotomy at the time that if you had the villain too strong, he would overpower the hero. And others thought just the opposite. I among them thought that the stronger you made the villain, the stronger the hero would be. Ultimately, heroes have to win. And besides, I also wanted a very strong villain because I thought that's going to carry the story. The heroes are inherently dull. They have to win. But villains are more exciting. So that was my first thought, to do what we now call a supervillain. We didn't have the word supervillain or superhero in our lexicon at the time. But that's what it was. So I knew that the great heroes in literature, from Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, back to the Bible, and almost every classic, had an important villain. So that was my first thought, to come up with a villain. And everything in your life somehow feeds into your work. A lot of the stories I had written for Columbia were, I love the short stories, the Maupassant, Chekhov, and oh, I can't think of all that. But they were my models. And so I'd always been my own creative writing. My short stories always were humorous, or at least had a humorous touch to them. So I think that led me to sort of put the two together, that my villain would have a sense of humor. That was literally as near as I could figure out. This is all in the space of hours that night. And once I got on the idea that I wanted a villain with a sense of humor, the names are so important in the comics. So I immediately thought what to call him. And somehow the Joker came to mind. And I've since written about this because, again, everything in your life pans out. One of my brothers was a champion bridge player. He was like had master points and so forth. And my mother was a very good contract breaker. And so there were always cards around the family. And I did, near as I can figure out, is that's how I immediately thought of deck of cards and the image of the Joker. And I remember frantically looking around my room that night to find a deck of cards with that symbolic Joker. Luckily, I found the one that had the traditional Joker image. And so that's how the whole thing coalesced, and I started to write the outline of the persona of the first Joker story. And that night, I also did the first concept sketch of the Joker. This is a show, you won't be able to see it there, but the show I produced on the the superhero that Michael referred to is on world tour. And in it, luckily I found in the drawer years later my first concept sketch of the Joker, which was this. I now have to keep it in the vault.